It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Hi, welcome to Rico Brogna. How the hell are we? We're not in a good mood. The Mets lose to the Philadelphia Phillies. They don't just lose to the Philadelphia Phillies. The Mets can't simply just lose a game in September. They can't just lose a game. They have to rip, your heart out. And that's what happened on a late Saturday afternoon in Philadelphia. Thank you for listening, downloading, subscribing, watching, however the hell you're consuming Rico Brogna. We do appreciate it. Part of being a Met fan is experiencing brutal losses. I think we all know that. The other part of being a Met fan is that sometimes guys, human beings that maybe you never heard of, guys who you'll never hear from again, guys who make it to the show, so congratulations to them, but marginal major leaguers stick it up our ass. That's being a Met fan. Where guys, and I'm sure they're fine guys, like Cal Stevenson is probably a great dude. He probably is. You probably want to have a beer with Cal Stevenson. But being a New York Met fan means that these obscure Major League Baseball players who are literally filling in, who may not have a job a year from now, will do things, not just one thing, things that you'll never forget. And this one game may not break the Mets season necessarily. The Mets have had a handful of bad losses. They seem to respond very well to them. But this one gentleman really stuck it to us on a Saturday afternoon. Not to eliminate that Bryce Harper stuck it to us pretty good. I certainly don't want to ignore that. Or the Philly bullpen, for the most part, did a pretty good job outside of Jeff Hoffman, basically giving up a home run to J.D. Martinez. But Cal Stevenson, this is the Cal Stevenson game. I mean, honestly, I think that when the Mets lose a bad game, we want to blame somebody. And there's a myriad of people. I can make like a blame list. I can bring back the old blame poll and kind of issue some blames. But Cal Stevenson of the Philadelphia Phillies was the hero. I mean, quite frankly, he just did great things. He had a showdown with Reed Garrett, who looked good. I mean, honestly, when he struck out Weston Wilson on that fastball on the outside part of the plate, ahead 1-2, Reed Garrett was showing you kind of the Reed Garrett we've seen over the last few weeks. And to the credit of Stevenson, he had a hell of an at-bat, and then he ripped the crap out of a 3-2 pitch. Should have been a 3-run home run. It missed by like 6 inches. But then to top it all off, he makes that incredible catch against J.D. Martinez. Look, there's a lot to kind of throw up from concerning this loss to Philadelphia. I think that the number one thing that jumped out at me was that early in this game, when they jumped on Colby Allard the way they did, and they were able to cash in a run on a bases-loaded walk, they missed an opportunity to make it worse on Colby Allard. He lost the strike zone. He walked 3 guys in a row. And luckily, it turned into 1 run. But with bases loaded and 2 out, after Albert had walked 3 straight guys, Francisco Alvarez trying to build off of what's been a very positive last 2 games, the game-winning home run against Toronto, obviously the home run he hit on Friday night, he had a chance to really jump on Allard and set the tone for this game. And so the early signs of this being one of those brutal losses was right then and there, bases loaded, 2 out, you got a mediocre pitcher on the ropes, and Alvarez jumped to the first pitch and skied out to right field. Now, it didn't feel like it was going to be the death knell because Luis Severino almost pitched an immaculate first inning, and he got off to an outstanding job. But opportunity number 2, Jose Iglesias, who is impossible to rip because Iglesias has had such a good year, and he did get on base twice in this game, filling in for Francisco Lindor, which we will get to, trust me, coming up. There's a lot to get to. But Jose Iglesias can't overrun second base, essentially. I mean, you have a 2-out double with Vientos and Nimmo coming up. I don't know if that turns into anything, but you can't just give an out away, especially to a team that's good like the Philadelphia Phillies. That was a mistake. Slide into second base. We saw the night before Francisco Lindor also not slide into second base, and it caused some kind of back issue. So that's mistake number 2, a failed opportunity that they never really even got a chance to take advantage of because Iglesias made a bad base running decision by not just simply sliding into second base. Instead, he sort of overruns and his foot comes off the bag. You could see it on the review. It was going to be overturned. But the real killer was that third inning. You've got first and third and nobody out after the Vientos double and the Nimmo single. Pete Alonso hits that ground ball to third base. I thought Vientos actually made a mistake by going back to third base, but he's bailed out because Cody Clemens makes the bad throw to first base. The Mets get a run. It's 2-0. They got guys on base. And right then and there, you got to blow it open. And they sort of did, right? Starling Marte hits that line drive that honestly should have been caught by Bryson Stott, goes over his glove. It's a 2-run triple, and it's 4-0. But the one thing I've learned, even though it's 4-0, and even though Severino looks amazing, and even though, all right, they've gotten some clutch hits. That's a big hit by Starling Marte. You have a runner on third and less than 2 outs. Cash it in. Make it 5-0. This is a very good Philadelphia offense. As much as the Mets shut them down on Friday, as good as Severino looked to start this game, we've learned a few things about Luis Severino, who's had a very solid year. He can lose it on a dime. Very quickly, Luis Severino can lose it. And we saw that in this game. So with a runner on third and less than 2 outs, Francisco Alvarez has to make contact. He does, and he strikes out. Harrison Bader, who's been clutch all year, it'd be nice for him to come up with a 2-run hit or 2-out hit. Instead, he flies out to right field. And from that moment on, and we've seen this a lot from the Met offense, they don't do anything. Iglesias grounds into the double play in the fourth. They do nothing in the fifth. They do nothing in the sixth. They do nothing in the seventh. I mean, honestly, they didn't even have many scoring opportunities. So when you have those scoring opportunities early, you have to cash it in. This is the Phillies we're talking about. They're not some crappy team. You know they could explode. Now, it's 4-0. You got Luis Severino dealing on the mound. There's that hope that maybe this great run the Mets have been on pitching-wise can simply continue. And when he gave up the solo home run to Bryce Harper, the fly ball to left field, that home run felt similar to the big one he hit a couple years ago in the NLCS, kind of part of the ballpark. Hits that home run, I'm not concerned yet. Because to me, 4-1, Severino's pumping in strikes. He's looking good. You got a 3-run lead. The moment where you could feel everything about this game change was when Severino walked Trey Turner with 2 outs and nobody on in the 6th inning, and I blame myself. I blame myself because, and listen, I'm being sarcastic because there's no such thing as jinxes, but I think sometimes as baseball fans, we like to talk ourselves into the fact that we jinxed our own team. With 2 outs and nobody on in the 6th inning, I started looking at the pitch count, and I started thinking, he could go 8. He could go 9. Wow, this could be a really deep performance by Luis Severino. The other thing I was doing was thinking about busting the balls of our producer on Evident Tiki, Tommy Lugauer, Positive Tommy, because Tommy had a sports opinion about a month ago that I thought was very dumb. He suggested they should move Severino to the bullpen and make Jose Budo a starter. So I was debating, should I text Loogie and bust his balls and show him the old video of him actually, I got a great idea. Let's move Sevy to the bullpen. And all this is happening with 2 outs and nobody on in the 6th inning with the Mets up 4-1. And what happens? The entire game changed when Severino walked Trey Turner. Everything changed because you're giving Bryce Harper, who had gone through one of the longest droughts of his career without hitting a home run. And one thing about these great sluggers, don't let them get hot. When Bryce hit that solo home run in the 4th inning, while the game didn't feel like it was in danger, 4-1 like I talked about, you could feel that Bryce erupting was a real possibility. And unfortunately for the Mets, they're seeing the Phillies a lot. It's not just survive Saturday and Sunday. They got to see him next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as well. You can't allow Bryce Harper to get hot. But he had gone, how many plate appearances without a home run? 110, 120, whatever it was, some absurd number. And so when you're Severino with a 3-run lead, and that's the part that kills me. You have a 3-run lead. The one thing you can't do with 2 outs and nobody on and Bryce Harper on deck is walk the guy in front of him. As good of a hitter as Trey Turner is, though Sevy got him out very easily in his first 2 at-bats. And when Bryce hit that 3-2 pitch and smoked the daylights out of it, I don't know how you guys felt, especially if you're watching the game live or maybe you're checking your phone on this beautiful Saturday afternoon, however you consume this Met game. But that's the moment I knew what inevitably was going to happen. You've got a bullpen that has been great for the most part, but now you need 9 outs. You have an offense that went to sleep after scoring those 4 runs in the first 3 innings. You have a Philly team that has a knack for coming back. Handwriting was on the wall. As soon as Bryce Harper smoked that 2-run home run, his second home run in as many plate appearances, I knew it. And there was something else that happened, if we want to be superstitious. Something else that occurred in the middle of this Met game that I didn't even realize at the time. For the second time this season, it's only happened twice, Pete Hoffman fell asleep. Now, that happens. It happened in the Arizona game. Remember the Arizona game where we thought the season was over and they blew the game when Corbin Carroll hit the grand slam and we wanted to do an emergency Rico Brogna? And Hoff fell asleep, which made sense. It's a West Coast game. He passed out. Little did I know that that's a sign of things to come. If Hoff passes out, we're screwed. Because apparently, after doing the overnight and taking the train down to D.C., because he does Giants radio, Hoffman fell asleep up 4-1. So Pete cost us for the 2 most brutal losses of the season occurred because you can't keep your eyes open.
Don't put this on me, bro. I mean, listen, I kept my eyes. I tried really hard, okay? I've been up all day. I tried hard to, and they were looking good. It's not my fault that they're flat. It's not my fault that, like, eventually this is going to happen. They're going to lose a game. Don't make it a big deal. Seriously.
You know what? Hoff, you're right. Losing a game is not a big deal. Losing a game to the Phillies is not a big deal. Blowing a 4-run lead, having your offense fall asleep after the first 3 innings, having the slow death of a game, having Cal Stevenson rob a home run, having the CT, that's blank tease of a 7th inning, that's what makes it a big deal. It's not that the Mets lost the game. It's how they lost the game. It's what they've done to us all season long, and it coincides with your ass falling asleep. But we accept your apology.
I promise you, from now on, from here on out, I will not sleep during a Met game.
Good.
Done.
Thank you. We appreciate
World
it.
Series championship. Here we come.
You're right. It's all locked up. But after Sevy gives up the home run, I'm sorry for anyone who disagrees. Actually, I'm not sorry. Screw you if you disagree. I'm just kidding. Sevy's done. I'm taking him out of the game. I don't care what his pitch count is. Like, remember this about pitch counts. Yes, sometimes we go too crazy about it in terms of taking a guy out too soon. Like if a guy's pitching really well, we shouldn't rush to take them out because their pitch count's 97 or their pitch count's even 102. But vice versa. Even if you have a low pitch count, and Sevy did, if you're seeing signs that a guy is done, take him out. So when Mendy pulled Severino after the 6th inning, and give Sevy a little bit of credit because after he gave up the home run to Bryce, he did get the last out of the inning. So the Mets still had a lead. He didn't completely give it up. But when he did that, I'm looking at his pitch count. I'm saying, all right, Sevy's at 86 pitches. That's not a lot. But I'm also thinking he just gave up a 2-run home run to Bryce. He gave up a home run to Bryce 2 innings earlier. I think I'm done. I think I have a better shot of piecing it together with my bullpen than I do running Severino out for another inning. And here's the other thing. Another part where I'm going to agree with Carlos Mendoza. When you see who is coming up that inning, Bryson Stott, a left-hand hitter, yes, a righty in JT Realmuto, and another lefty in Brandon Marsh, and even though he had 4 righties on the bench, none of them jumped out at you as anyone that's going to pinch hit for Brandon Marsh and scare you. I thought he made the right decision that it was the Danny Young lane, if you will, to bring him in the 7th inning. So I didn't even disagree with the way Mendy managed it. And when Young gives up the blue pit to Bryson Stott, which was a blue pit. I mean, it's not like he ripped it. And then he gives up another blue pit to JT Realmuto. And then he makes the play on the sack bunt, though Jose Iglesias almost lost his arm on that play. I agreed with Mendy that, of course, you take Danny Young out. He faced his 3 batters. He pitched into some very bad luck by giving up some soft contact, but giving up base hits. And there's no doubt that you go to the bullpen. Now, to me, you have 2 choices. Honestly, I think you have 2 choices. I think you have Reed Garrett, who he decided to go to. Reed has thrown the ball incredibly well recently. He is striking guys out, and he's getting ground balls. And that's exactly what you're looking for in a situation of 2nd and 3rd and 1 out. And you're going to think I'm nuts on this. I actually disagreed with Mendy that he brought the infield in. Now, that turned out not to matter. It's an irrelevant thing because Garrett came in and struck out Weston Wilson. But I saw the infield and I'm like, I don't like this. I got a ground ball pitcher on the mound. There's a decent chance it's just going to be a soft ground ball that somehow sneaks through. I'd rather play the infield back, concede the run, and just say to myself, you know what? It's a tie game. It's late. I'll take my chances that I get someone to run into one. Because if you bring the infield in and there's a cheapy base hit, now you're losing by a run. But here's the reality. Didn't matter because Reed Garrett got the big strikeout. So I said there were 2 options. There was the Reed Garrett option. And you know what the other option was? And Mendy would never do it. You know what the other option is. If you listen to the Rico long enough, you know exactly what I'm about to say, even if you may disagree with me. The other option is Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz doesn't have to be held off until the 9th inning. Why, you ask? Because if Diaz can get out of that inning and maybe get you 2 outs, dare I say 3 outs in the 8th inning, you worry about the 9th inning when you get to the 9th inning. You have no idea. Maybe the Mets blow the game open by then. Maybe they do. So I think that's the other option, but I also have learned that Mendy's not going to do that. You know, earlier this season, we did see him use Diaz a little bit in 8th inning situations. We have never seen him use it in the 7th inning. But in that scenario, 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, nursing a 1-run lead. It is against the bottom of the order. So you're not facing the Phillies' best hitters. But my thought is, this is my thought on why I would consider Diaz, and I would think it's probably the best move to make. If he can get through that inning against 8 and 9, then I have him facing the Phillies' best hitters in the 8th inning, Schwarber, Turner, and Harper. And then he's done. And yes, I'll worry about the 9th inning when I get to the 9th inning, but I have Diaz set up to not only get out of a big jam, a tough jam, but I then have him available to face the Phillies' best hitters. And even if the Mets give up the lead, let's say it's a sacrifice fly, like he doesn't give up the lead to where they're losing. He gives up the lead and it's a tie game. I still like the fact that my best reliever is facing the Phillies' best hitters. No one even considers this. Like, I didn't hear Gary Cohen bring this up. It's almost like it's foreign. I don't think it's foreign. I don't think anything I'm saying is that crazy. Let me use my best reliever. But if it's not going to be Diaz, which I know Mendy's not doing, Reed Garrett is the best option. I think we've all had to kind of reinvent this circle of trust. Should it be Jose Budo? Received one of those live emails, the ricob@gmail.com. Clayton Caldwell wrote, where is he? Where's Jose Budo? Now, to Clayton's credit, he wanted Jose Budo in the 8th inning once the Mets were down by a run as opposed to Ryan Stanek. I'll get to that in a minute. He goes to Reed Garrett, and this is what made this game so freaking frustrating. He strikes out the pinch hitter Weston Wilson. So with 2nd and 3rd and 1 out in that spot where you really need a strikeout, getting a ground ball, not ideal because you've brought the infield in. There's a decent chance he gets a ground ball. It just flies by, and now both runs score. Garrett teases us by striking out Weston Wilson. And then he's a strike away from getting through Cal Stevenson. And, of course, Stevenson just absolutely smokes one. What was that, a hanging splitter that I think Garrett threw? Hanging slider? And Stevenson hit just the crap out of it. And it put the Phillies up by a run. And you just knew. I know the Mets have shown a lot of fight, but you just knew. And to make matters worse, okay, Garrett gets through the 7th inning, strikes out Trey Turner, big spot after he walked Kyle Schwarber. They're only down a run. You've got 6 outs to play. And J.D. Martinez hits a ball to center. And I'm screaming, get up, get up, get up. And as I see Stevenson leap up, and I tried not to curse because I had Jet with me, and I don't necessarily want him hearing me curse. I curse, but I don't want my kids hearing it. But as Stevenson is flying through the air and ripping that home run away from J.D. Martinez, I did let out, not a big F word, but like a tiny one, like a squeak, like a little, like a Donald Duck. Very quick. But that was another one. That's another gut punch. It's bad enough all these things happen that we described throughout the game. And then it looks like J.D. Martinez is about to instantly respond off Jeff Hoffman with a game-tying home run, and Stevenson brings it back. Absolute killer. Marte gets hit by a pitch. By the way, we got to worry about that one too. Marte gets absolutely drilled on the forearm. Mendy said after the game they're going to do some imaging just for precaution. At this point, it's tough to be very confident he's going to be okay. I sat here, and I apologize for anyone who watched Friday night's Rico Brogna or listened and downloaded Friday night, Saturday morning's Rico Brogna, and I wasn't trying to be confident because, hey, it's good to be positive. I genuinely thought, you know what, Lindor is going to be okay. And maybe Lindor will be okay, but the early signs are worrisome. He's not in the lineup. Mendy basically tells us, hey, maybe available. I think Lindor said that before the game. And you started to think about that game against the Cubs earlier this season, where the one game he didn't start, he had the stomach flu. He comes in the game late, ends up driving in 4 runs, including the game-winning run. One of the best games Lindor had all season long earlier in this season back in May. And so you're thinking, oh, he's going to come into this game 5th, 6th inning. It's just, you know what? Takes a while to get his back ready. They're going to give Luis Angel Acuna the start, and then Lindor will come in. And then we get the update from Gelbs late in the game. He's not even wearing his cleats. They're continuing to say the right things. Lindor, after the game, says he feels better. He thinks he's going to be fine. He framed it as it was taking so long to get ready and see if he was going to be ready that Mendy came to him and said, you know what? We're just going to give you a clean off day. And if that's what it is, with the thought being, you know what? We won on Friday. Let's give him a clean off day. Let's give Acuna a nice full major league debut. Get Lindor rested. There's a lot of games coming up, and he's good to go on Sunday. If that's the case, great. But if he's out of the lineup Sunday, don't we have to start getting worried? At some point, don't we have to say, maybe this back issue is bigger than we initially thought? I sat here yesterday thinking, I ain't worried. Lindor's track record is that he'll be in the lineup on Saturday. And he wasn't. And I'm not killing Lindor for it. Obviously, if he's not in the lineup, that shows you that the back is a problem. Nobody's questioning him or his toughness. We're really just questioning our decision to become Met fans. That's really what it is. Like, are you kidding me? Here's a guy who's having an MVP season. Here's a guy who is legitimate in terms of carrying this team single-handedly, potentially, to a playoff spot. And at the worst possible time, he has a back issue. So the fingers remain crossed. The baseball prayers remain in order that he will be good to go for Sunday, because it's an important game, especially with the fact that the LA Dodgers are a bunch of frauds. I mean, my God, Braves Dodgers, you're figuring you're going to get help. You're figuring the big bad Shohei Ohtani will do something to prove he's an MVP against the Atlanta Braves. Maybe help us out a little bit. And they've done nothing of the sorts. Nothing of the sorts. What a joke they are. I'm just being frustrated. I mean, they may be a fine team, but 10-1? I mean, my God, can you show some competitiveness? So the Dodgers have lost back-to-back games to the Braves, which means, you know what it means, we're tied for a wild card spot again. So hopefully Lindor is okay. As far as Acuna is concerned, it's crazy, man. Hoff will tell you. We wrapped up the Rico after the big win Friday night, and it must have been within like 10 minutes of the pod being done that I see the report that the Mets are calling up Luis Angel Acuna. And if we did the podcast, I would have told you, all right, everything I said about being positive about Lindor, throw it out the window. The fact that now they're calling up Acuna tells you they're a little worried. And David Stearns did admit that while they've talked about calling him up, and that is not something that just came out of nowhere, it was moved along because of this concern to Lindor, this injury to Lindor, and, protecting themselves and giving themselves versatility. Credit to Luis Angel Acuna. He's thrown into a pennant race. He's thrown into a tough spot. He's played a lot better in AAA over the last few months, but his overall numbers don't exactly jump out at you. And he comes out, makes his major league debut against the Philadelphia Phillies, and gets a couple of base hits. I think the most impressive one was the ninth inning. You're down by 2. You're leading off. 2-2 count. Carlos Estevez, who's had a very good year, and he bangs a single to right center field. Hell of a debut for Luis Angel Acuna. Unfortunately, when Acuna got that base hit, the Mets were down by 2 runs because Ryan Stanek came in. And if you've thought about putting Ryan Stanek in the circle of trust, you're an idiot. Because, of course, Ryan Stanek gives up that RBI double to JT Realmuto, and a 5-4 game becomes a 6-4 game. So when Acuna gets the base hit, he's not the tying run. Now the tying run's at the plate. And that also sucks when your bullpen gives up that tack-on run late. Turns out not to matter. Inning probably plays out the same way. But Ryan Stanek giving up a 2-out double to JT Realmuto that was a little misplayed by Brandon Nimmo in center field. Absolute killer. And that's where that email from Clayton is valid. Where's Jose Butto? Despite Butto's struggles, I would still trust Jose Butto down a run in the 8th inning a hell of a lot more than Ryan Stanek.
Question to you, because you just said that that Stearns came on and was basically open and said, yeah, Acuna came up because we were concerned about Lindor. How does it feel to be told the truth?
Well, it feels good. It feels good, but it also sucks because I don't want to be concerned about Francisco Lindor, but we have to, especially when the team president says, yeah, we called him up because we wanted to give ourselves some extra versatility, because who knows if Lindor is going to miss some time. You don't call him up if you don't think Lindor is going to miss some amount of time, even if it's only a game. So how does it feel? Right now, it doesn't feel good because the Mets just got kicked in the balls in the middle of a pennant race. So not that good.
Yeah, but my point, is that the management is telling us the truth, where they could just lie to us and be like, nah, it's time, it's ready. Like, we've been lied to so long, it almost feels bad even when they tell us the truth.
Well, because you know why? As much as we want managers or team presidents to tell us the truth, as much as maybe we want our managers to give different answers in press conferences, or our coaches to give different answers in press conferences, here's what this all comes down to. It comes down to winning. It comes down to success. And so Lindor being hurt is a scary proposition. And so while you're right, David Stearns did nothing wrong, and it's nice that he was being honest about the call-up of Luis Angel Acuna, if Lindor doesn't play Sunday, if Lindor doesn't play Monday, super that they're honest, it's still a major worry, and we're still in bad moods. They need Francisco Lindor. It's the most obvious statement in the world, but it's the reality. And that is the big concern now going into Sunday. It's what made Saturday, September 14th, a less than ideal day as a Met fan. Not only do they blow a 4-run lead to the Philadelphia Phillies, not only do they let Cal Stevenson become, a new Met-killing legend, but you have concerns about Lindor that are legitimate. You have even concerns about Starling Marte that are legitimate. Starling Marte seems to be a walking injury. This is one where it's tough to blame him. He just got hit by a pitch, and now we got to wait on the imaging. You could say, oh, they're doing it for precautionary reasons. It looked like he got seriously hurt. I was surprised he stayed in the game. And it comes on the heels of one of Marte's most productive games. He draws the bases loaded walk in the 1st inning. He gets the 2-run triple in the 3rd inning. He gets a base hit in the 5th inning. Marte was on base every plate appearance. Unfortunately, the last one was the one where he got hit. Email from Michael writes, what a gut-wrenching loss. That loss had all the hallmarks of a gut-wrenching Met loss. Stranding runners on third base with less than 2 outs and failing to tack on runs. Check. Walking Trey Turner with Bryce Harper on deck. I mentioned it. Check. Not being careful with a streaky hot Bryce Harper in his second at-bat. Mendy pulling Severino at 86 pitches in favor of an inconsistent Danny Young. I do disagree with Mike about that. I pointed that out earlier. If you missed it, you just rewind a little bit. Possibly losing a hot Marte to a hit by pitch 2022 when he won. Reed Garrett not trusting his fastball and getting burned by a flat slider. Check. A home run saving catch by Stevenson. Check. Stanek grooving a fastball to Real Muto for an insurance run. Check. And last but not least, a complete disappearing act from Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso, just like in the 2022 pennant race. For Pete's sake, bat Alonso and Nimmo 6th and 7th where they belong. And let's pray that Lindor returns tomorrow and they can take the series. Alonso, specifically on this game in particular, and Pete needs to hit. I think that's obvious. Pete getting on a hot streak would be very nice and much needed, especially if Lindor's out. But I do want to give proper credit to Pete. His walk with 2 outs and a runner on first in the first inning helped set up the bases-loaded walk to Starling Marte. The ground ball with first and third, nobody out in the third inning. Yeah, lucky he did get a break because Clemens made the bad throw. He came up leading off the 5th inning. He came up with 2 outs and nobody on in the 7th inning. So it didn't feel like he had impactful at-bats in this game. Brandon Nimmo, I mean, I guess, he did get the base hit in the inning that was set up with the Starling Marte 2-run triple. But look, you're right. Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso are core pieces that need to hit, especially if Lindor is out. And even if Lindor is not out, Lindor is now dealing with a back issue. So even if he plays on Sunday, even if he plays on Monday, are we going to get MVP Francisco Lindor? Or are we going to get a guy who's just battling through back pain and it may not be the same guy, maybe a compromised guy? So honestly, either way, and I know we've said this a lot, but it remains even more so true as we enter the final 2 weeks of the season with a compromised Francisco Lindor. Pete Alonso needs to be huge. Needs to be huge. How about the update on Paul Blackburn? You guys see that? He's got spinal leakage. I don't know what that is. Here's what I know. You can forget about his existence. Paul Blackburn no longer exists now. The good news is Kodai Senga may be back. But yeah, Paul Blackburn, you can almost forget about his existence. Sunday now becomes huge. David Peterson. What a moment for David Peterson. David Peterson is coming off of arguably, maybe not arguably, maybe definitively his worst start of 2024. He was not helped out by his defense, but he did not pitch well earlier this week against Toronto. The Mets need a big performance out of David Peterson. They need their bats to hit the lefty Christopher Sanchez, and they need this game on Sunday. It has now become a very important game. The Mets have done a great job responding to gut-wrenching losses. We all remember what happened after they had the bad loss to Arizona, the Corbin Carroll Grand Slam game. They responded with their biggest winning streak of the year. They need to respond on Sunday with a win. The Atlanta Braves are not going away. We Met fans have to stop disrespecting them. Stop it. I don't care how many freaking injuries they have. The Braves are tough and they're feisty, and they're proving that with these 2 wins against the Dodgers. Luckily, the Arizona Diamondbacks have run into a Brewer buzzsaw, and they remain very close. The Padres, Diamondbacks, Mets, and Braves only being separated by 2 games in the loss column is nuts. And it's great because it gives the Mets more avenues to secure a playoff spot. But it starts with responding after this awful, awful loss. And David Peterson, you've had a great year. You've earned a lot of our trust. This is your biggest moment. And it's not easy. In Philly, against the Phillies, after a loss, get it freaking done. That's it. Get it done. We'll have another Rico after this series is over. It'll be a late night Rico. Big football Sunday. A lot going on. Hoff is producing giant football. So I would give you a rough estimate if you're one of those Rico consumers that like to watch or listen live. It'll be sometime after 10 o'clock. I just want to give you full transparency on that. But we will definitely have a series recapping Rico Sunday night after the Mets play the Philadelphia Phillies to wrap up their 3-game series and get set for 3 against the Nationals at Citi, 4 against Philadelphia to wrap up their home schedule. Thank you very much for listening, downloading, and subscribing to, unfortunately, an unhappy edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.